I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Welcome to the Pound This Podcast, friends. I'm Amanda Valentine. In this episode, my friend and health and wellness coach, entrepreneur, badass, Lindsay Bonadonna is going to interview me with some of her questions and then questions that were asked of me on Instagram. My Instagram name is now Pound This Path. More details on that coming soon. But before we get into this conversation with Lindsay, I want to tell you about another amazing woman in my life, and that is Sarah and Team Fit With Me. Sarah has been my health coach over the course of this journey. I met Sarah years ago from this podcast, which is absolutely amazing. And she met her health and wellness coach from Pound This, kind of what inspired her and her journey to now become a health coach on her own. She has an entire team with her that can help you reach your goals. After Sarah has reached her own goals, she went through weight loss surgery, then hired a coach that she heard on this podcast to actually get her eating more to lose weight. So she understands reverse dieting, and sometimes it's not eating less and less calories and burning yourself out. It's about fueling your body and taking care of your body. And sometimes, myself included, we're not the best at doing that for ourselves, which is why we need a health coach. And if you're thinking, oh, dang, I wish I could have a health coach, but I can't afford that, go to teamfitwithme.com, reach out to Sarah, have a conversation. First, let her know your goals, what you want to do, see if she can help you, and then you can discuss the payment plans, the price, and all of that, because your health is so freaking important, and that is worth the time and the investment. It is definitely worth at least the freaking conversation. So teamfitwithme.com, reach out to Sarah, see if she's the right health coach for you. Now let's get into learning all about me with Lindsay. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I'm Amanda Valentine. I am stepping down as host of this podcast today and handing the reins to Lindsay Bonadonna.
Yes! I am so excited for this. I tried to memorize your intro so I could do it, but I can't do it. So we'll just get right into it.
Yeah. So I asked you, or this came up somehow. We recorded another podcast that I never published because we're both kind of like, we feel weird about it. So like, let's not put it out there then. But you kind of brought up like interviewing me because I have such a hard time sometimes, even though I go on these really long monologue rants about myself. And there's new people coming here all the time. And I think there's just so many like, I guess like I'm just a dynamic person of like so many things that have gone on in my life in totality, but also just in the past few years that are so much more than just like health and wellness. Like I had somebody on Instagram write me and thank me for talking about making career changes. Mm-hmm. So I asked on Instagram if people had any questions that they wanted to know, and I gave those to you, and I don't remember what they are, and you have your own questions. So
they're amazing.
I am excited to be interviewed.
Yes. And we just celebrated our
2-year. Was it 2-year?
I don't
like friendship anniversary?
Yes, our homie anniversary.
It does feel longer than 2 years though, like in a good way.
Absolutely, in a great way. So I am excited for this opportunity. And I think the first question that I want to start off with is, Amanda Valentine, today, who are you? What's like your 1-2 minute like introduction? Like, I am Amanda Valentine. And FYI, friends, she doesn't know what she's going to be asked. So this is all on the fly. But what do you do?
What do I do? Like for a living?
Yeah.
Well, the only way I make money currently is from my 9-to-5 job, which I am the major gifts officer at the Cincinnati Nature Center, which is fundraising. The Nature Center is a nonprofit, does not receive government funding to do all of the, education programs, to do all the conservation work. I've had such a history of like being in nature and loving nature, and I actually lost 100 pounds that way. So I know that's kind of got lost in over 800 episodes of this podcast, but my New Year's resolution started in 2012, and I hated going to gyms at that point. So all I did was go outside and walk and listen to podcasts and start making healthier food choices. So I walked, I listened to a Couch to 5K podcast and just did all of my walking, running, hiking outside exclusively for years. And that's what I like to vacation doing. So I love being in nature for mental and physical health, and to be able to have that be like my job now is so super cool. So that's I know that's not like us saying who I am, but that is what my current profession is, which I think is also a big part of me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have a job that's not meaningful.
Yes, I think that is so important. It's been so cool too, because I came into your life at a time where you were doing the podcast, you were doing personal training. So I've gotten to witness you just explode over the last couple of years. And it's been so cool.
Explode in good and bad ways.
It's been all great ways. Although I recognize that at certain points in time, it probably didn't feel very great.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting few years.
Yeah, it's been wild, dude.
Yeah, I feel like when I've had this discussion with people, I'm like, I literally set my whole life on fire. Like, I burnt, and I didn't have to. Like, everything in my life was good. Like, working in radio technically was good, but just didn't feel like who I was anymore. There's just lots of reasons why I didn't want to. A mentally terrible job. I felt like I did everything I was going to do. It just didn't feel authentic to me anymore. I had this podcast that felt like it was making a difference. So I made this huge leap that everybody thought I was insane for. Like, I've got the job and the career that I worked 20 years for, and I left it. Yeah. And took, like, just, it was very scary. So I left that, and then just trying to like figure out what is my next path, and COVID happened, and really trying to figure out that, and then leaving an 18-year relationship and being like, this is not, going in the direction that we both need it to. And this is the best decision for both of us. And so it's been like, yeah, or even just deciding like, I don't want to live on this side of town anymore. I want to live in a different part of Cincinnati that's more serves who I am now. So it's like all of these choices of like, nothing was bad, but I purposely was like, this has to change and this has to go. And it's so hard and scary when you're like, it's like if you lose a job, it sucks and it's one thing and it kind of forces into another thing. But whenever it's like you make all those decisions on your own and like torch it down, you're just like, oh my God, is this the stupidest thing I've ever done? Like, what the hell am I doing? Yeah. It's this whole level of like, I must be insane. Like, is this the wrong decision? Like, constantly that fear.
So I definitely want to get into some questions that your listeners have asked, but I have a question because I think everything that you're saying right now is really relatable. And I feel like there are a lot of people in the world that are not fulfilled. Like in my coaching practice, it's been so interesting to see how that's developed because I end up, well, I'm a health and life coach. A lot of people come for the health part. They're like, oh, I want more energy, or I want to lose weight, or I want to eat better. Like 10 times out of 10, what we end up focusing on the most is life. And it always has to do with a major transition in career or a major transition in relationships. I think you're the first person where it's been like, F it. I'm going to do both. But
I'm going to burn it all down at once. Let's go.
But I think there are more and more people starting to wake up and just be like, is this what life is supposed to feel like? Is this all there is? I mean, I know those were the questions that I woke up with and started making big changes. But Amanda, what is if you could only give one sentence of advice to encourage someone that's listening, that's contemplating a big life transition, what would that one sentence be? Like, is there something that you heard along the way that you were just like, let's go, that pushed you kind of over the edge? Or is there something that you wanted to hear that would have helped you?
No, I mean, the first thing, just right at the jump of you asking the question, the first thing that popped in my head was just trust yourself.
Hell yes.
So I think I think it's like it all comes down to, and I feel like that I didn't do that for a really long time. And I think that's why it's so scary to do it now. And it's just trusting the whole process. It's just having faith. Yeah. It's having faith in yourself. It's having faith that everything happens the way it's supposed to. At least that's what I feel. And it's trusting yourself of like really tuning in and listening to like, what do you want? We are here for a blip in time. Yeah. And if we're lucky, like tomorrow is not promised, and that is real. Mm-hmm. And if that's true, and I only have this consciousness right now for a limited amount of time, like how do I want to spend it? Like how do I want my time on earth to be for me? And then how can I serve others in that time that I'm here? Like for me, I'm like, how do I maximize my experience here. Like for me, I'm like, I just really want to like absorb life. I want to feel life. I want to live it. So I feel like when you really kind of, not that everybody has to feel that way, but when you kind of like really settle down, whether it's meditation or you're just taking a long shower or whatever, and thinking about what brings you joy, what you want your life to be, what you want your obituary to say. Like, how do you want to be remembered? Like, what is the life that you want to create? Think about that. And then are you making the steps to do that? And if you're not, then it's really taking a hard look at those things and deciding what stays and what goes and what comes in. Because what sucks in what I've learned is like things have to leave for other things to come in.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, I want this awesome life I have envisioned, but that can't exist while I'm still living in this current life because there's no space for it. I have to create space for it. And it's going to feel like you set yourself on fire to get there.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a really long answer, but trust yourself.
Oh my gosh. So many things came to mind while you were talking. And, you know, what's been amazing is that I think about our time that we've had together as friends and all of the different, Amanda and I probably leave at least an hour's worth of voice messages back and forth to each other every single day of just like voice text.
It's like our own podcasting.
It is. Yes. But I think about all of the ups and downs on both sides, right? I mean, it's like people listen to us and they're like, they have it together. They know how to figure it out. And it's like, no, you do have to trust yourself and make space to bring in new things by letting go of old things that aren't serving you. And I think what can feel so scary about that is it's like the known dysfunction can feel less scary than the unknown function.
Oh, yeah.
Like the unknown functionality, right? But it's one of those where it's just like, and it's been beautiful to see you just kind of like arrive and continue to grow in this place of like, dude, I know it sucks so bad. It sucks so hard, but like it will be great. Every time that you make any little choice to choose yourself and consider yourself, it does all work out, but holy hell.
Yeah.
If it does not suck. And there is no arrival on a side note. That's a fun fact. I remember always thinking it's like, oh, like when this happens, it's like, no, you just keep on growing. That's cool.
Right. Well, and I think it's just a pick your pain. Like, do you choose the pain? If you're sitting there thinking you're like, I'm unhappy and you're in pain to some level. I'm not saying that, you know, if you're not, don't go up and change your life. But if you're feeling those things, it's either you stay in the comfort zone and keep feeling that pain, or do you go through the pain of change? Mm-hmm. So it's like making a choice of which one's harder. And like sometimes it's going to take years to make those decisions.
Totally. And that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, so some of these decisions are so big that you're not going to take a long meditative shower and flip a switch and it's all going to change tomorrow. So it's crazy where like some of the stuff I've changed felt like it was this massive mountain and is going to take forever to do. And it felt like taking forever to do. And now I'm like, oh, that's like way in the rear view mirror.
Right.
Like that's crazy. Like I remember I thought that was like never going to end or never going to happen. And I'm like, and then I just like look around at where I'm at now and I'm like, whoa, that's wild.
Oh, yes. Yes. And I think to what you're saying for anyone that's listening, that first step is if you're noticing that something is not, if something's making you feel like doggy do, like take time to just slow down where you can. It doesn't have to be for an hour. It could be for like a minute and just be like, hey, this is making me feel like crap.
Yeah.
And just get curious around it and continue to get curious. And then the change just kind of happens. I think sometimes we think that it's like, oh, we have to like just, it has to be like quick and fast, but it doesn't. You'll know.
Yeah.
When you take time to listen to yourself, you'll know when to make the next move.
Yeah.
This feels like a great time to transition into one of these questions.
Okay.
So this is from somebody really cool. I don't know if I should I share like the Instagram names?
No.
Okay. Thank you, cool person that asked this question. Hopefully you recognize it. Okay. So besides fitness, what are your other hobbies? What are you into these days? And I would love for you to share some of the more like esoteric stuff, like outside of like just being outdoors?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, it is hiking. I wouldn't define that for me as a fitness activity though. I just like love being outside.
Yeah. Why isn't that fitness to you? Say
parts
more.
of it is, I think it's two different headspaces. There's a time where I'm out there being like, I'm getting my step count out. This is my exercise. But there's other times where I'm like, I just want it to feel peaceful. I just want to walk in the woods and like appreciate like how pretty everything is. And like, I just want to like kind of just be quiet and pay attention, or I want to just zone out. So I feel like there's two times. I feel like recently I'm not really using it for fitness because I'm not like hiking a mountain or anything here. Like I would define that as more of like I'm getting to a summit is more exercise to me. So I wouldn't define that as fitness. God, what else do I do? I mean, I do a lot of meditation. I don't know if that's like a hobby. I like using YouTube guided meditations. I've been riding my bike a lot. It sounds fitnessy. This is just a crap I like.
I think it's interesting though, because like, yes, it's movement and fitness, but it sounds like you're using it. It's not physical change or physical fitness is not like the motivation of it.
Yeah, I'm not using the bike ride to like lose weight or anything like that. I think in the past, some of the physical exercise I did was all with the intention of losing weight. So I've been riding my bike more. So backstory about the bike is when I was in 6th grade, I got into a pretty rough bike accident. And I just got a 10-speed. So I used to love riding my bike. I had this like banana seat Huffy. And it kicked ass. Its name, it had a nameplate and it said Sweet Thunder.
There's so much we could do with that.
I know, that's
Did
my
it
OnlyFans
have like
name.
the streamers off the handles by chance, or like the loud things that go around the spokes?
I had the little things on the spokes, but I mean, I hung out with like a gang of boys, and so like we like took that thing like mudding. So it was this pink bike that went out and caught like frogs and stuff and crawdads. But I loved that bike, could do tricks on the bike, stand on the seat and ride down hills and stuff. Got the 10-speed, was just getting used to it, was meeting my friend at the park, went past the sand volleyball court, ball ran in front of my front tire.
Shit.
I flipped over the handlebars and they just re-rocked the road and face first down the road.
Holy
so it like
crap.
road rashed my whole face. It destroyed my glasses. It road rashed my arms, my legs, my knee. I could see my kneecap. It ripped such a huge hole into my leg that like all these like teenagers like had to run up and like put
This
a
is
towel
my
over
first
it.
time hearing this story.
Yeah. And so they ran up and I have like many horror stories of how like I've almost drowned a couple times, all sorts of stuff. But which is why I was so scared of swimming too. And I learned how to swim in the past year. But the bike is an overcoming a fear thing too, just like the swimming. And so like I was really scared to ride a bike from then on. And my ex-husband, when we lived in Denver, after I started like my weight loss journey, because I was walking and stuff so much outside, bought me a cruiser bike thinking that I could ride around town on that, which having no speeds in Denver didn't really work.
I feel that.
So it didn't work, and I lived in Oregon either. So I just kind of sat there. And so I'm like, this is something I really want to do. Like I feel like I enjoy it. And so was it the beginning of last year? It was either last year or 2021. I bought this bike at Reeser Bicycle in Newport, and with the intention of like, I want to get comfortable with it and I want to have more fun. So, which is also one of the reasons I wanted to buy a house and move closer to a bike trail, because I lived in the west side of Cincinnati, which is not bike friendly. And I'm proud of myself. Like I've gone to a couple of group bike rides, which is really out of my comfort zone. So that seemed really scary to be like I'm riding with a pack of bike riders in the middle of the streets. So I've done that a few times this summer. So again, like it doesn't feel like fitnessy to me. It feels like getting out of my comfort zone, learning something and doing something that I enjoy. These are like, I feel like I'm giving the longest answers ever to these questions.
This is the whole point though. We have like no place to be but here, friend.
So I liked that. What else do I just randomly do? I've been trying to get a little bit more into reading fiction books, because I read so much nonfiction and all this self-help stuff and like, trauma in the body and like really intense things. So I've been trying to read some more fiction, fluffy books, which by the way is hard as hell to find a fluffy fiction book that's not murder. I don't want to read a murder book, and there's so many damn murder mysteries. Not knocking them because I've read them before and enjoyed them. I'm just not in the mood for murder right now. And
What
it's
about
like,
some like
it's difficult to find a fiction book that's like not based on like some true crime stuff. And I'm sorry, I know like I'm also not a true crime girly either. I don't listen to true crime podcasts. Again, I know people love it. I am not knocking it. It's just not my thing. So I like it's hard because that's kind of what it feels like most that is, or it's romance novels, which isn't really my thing either. So I'm trying to find my own little niche of fiction books to read. Oh God, what else do I do? I don't know. I like just going on random road trips and adventures of like, oh, I've never been to Big Bone Lick State Park. Let's go. So
I've always wanted to go to Big Bone Lick.
it's okay. But like
In the name, I mean, let's be real.
And that's like something that I've like thought about too a lot in the past couple of years of like really being like, what really brings me joy? Like what small things like big, like I can't take a big trip all the time. And
Yeah.
plus that stresses me out with money and stuff half the time anyway. And I'm like, I feel like I'm having the most fun is if I'm not with like friends having an awesome time. Then I'm like, I love just random little road trips. I love when I don't really have anywhere to go. Like I can just, I don't know if you can hear my cat banging at the door in the background.
If you do, just saying hello.
But like, so I did with the intention, this was really fun the other weekend where all like, I'm okay, my mission for the day, because I had nothing to do that day, because I've also been trying to unbusy myself. So that's a big thing that I've been doing because I've been such a workaholic and have 8,000 things going on all the time and run on burnout constantly. Then in the past year, I've been really good at building boundaries and actually like trying to just be chill and not work. So for me, it's a big deal to be like, I have an entire day off. I'm actually going to go out and have fun and not focus on work. So I gave myself the mission. I'm like, all I want to do is hang my hammock up by the Ohio River somewhere. So I just like packed up my car with some snacks and some water and my hammock. And I was just like, let's go see where I can go find some spots, and just like drove down the river. And like in the process, I like stopped and got ice cream, and I saw Ulysses S. Grant birthplace.
Yes.
And like,
Yeah.
I went in there and like,
We've done a similar drive, yes.
like, and so I walked in there too. It was like a record scratch because like there's tours in process, and I'm showing up like wearing like, you know, my wackadoo clothes and braids and my fanny pack and my like weird cap and stuff. And they're just like, oh my God, who is this chick? I'm like, tell me all about Ulysses S. Grant. I'm here now. Let's figure this out. And I really love small town grocery stores. So I love like these just random like adventures going to IGAs and stuff. So like I really like, I like doing those things. Like that's fun for me. It's just like random road trip with a loose agenda and just kind of seeing where I end up.
What kind of things bring you peace in your house to do?
I really like listening to, if you go on like Spotify, there's a channel that's like called Focus, and it gives you lots of like focus options. Mm-hmm. So I like listening to some of these like instrumental focus playlists, or like, just like this, was it the solfeggio frequencies or whatever, just like calming, like sort of, you think like getting a massage music. And I like just putting that on like a Bluetooth speaker, and my house is small, so you can kind of hear it everywhere. And I like just like laying on the couch or sitting on my back porch and just kind of like zoning out. Again, like trying not to work, like trying to unbusy myself. That gives me a lot of peace in my house. I really like sitting on my back deck and drinking coffee and just like listening to the birds and stuff in the morning. I really like that a lot. That's really like peaceful and really nice, and I enjoy that.
I think what you're saying about unbusying yourself is so powerful for people to hear. And I know that's something too that like we were just talking about it before we started recording. It's because I think it's tied to like the ability to be able to make what feels like big change in your life. It's like we have to slow down. We have to be unbusy. Like that's literally how we are designed to work as humans. We're not meant to run and distract and like do all of these different things all the time. So it's in the unbusying, how uncomfortable has that been for you? Like, has it been a pretty like, oh yeah, I know I need to do this, and it's like, cool, here I am. I'm like doing more things to be unbusy, or do you still find yourself having to be like really intentional and make a decision to do it?
It's gotten a lot easier. It was really hard at first. It made me feel crazy. because I'm so, and like, it was really interesting for me that it's like, I kind of knew this at the time, but I didn't really know it until, everything was done and settled and finding more peace, in single life, that I didn't really realize for me, in my personal circumstance, obviously this is an interview about me, that I didn't realize that I was working so much and overworking because I was like unhappy at home. So I felt like that I was unhappy in my home life and just frustrated. Not that it was like the worst thing ever or anything, but it was just, it was not good for me. It was not good. So I think that I just did so much work to distract myself from being present in that. Because I could always have the excuse of, well, I'm so busy. You know what I mean? Yes. So I feel like that was a role that I wouldn't say that's everything, because I also am just like a hard worker, and I'm also very passionate and very driven. And I've always been that way. But I would say definitely in the past several years of my marriage, I had been way more of an overworker, burnout person than I had been previously. So I think that definitely played a role. So, and then also just really learning of, like, in the spaces I'm at now, like I love doing this podcast. I love working at the nature center, and I don't want to hate it. Like there has to be boundaries and rules, because I'm like, if I run as hard as I've run before, I know the pattern. I'll hate it and I'll want out, and I don't want to have those feelings. So it's like, it's hard for me. Like a good example is where it's still like, this isn't, I guess, unbusying myself as more as boundaries. And I'm recognizing this is exactly how I used to be, like such a go hard, like a 1,000 times go hard. Right. Is who I wouldn't say I'm not that anymore. That's still part of me, but not as nearly as intense. And that's so funny. P.S. side note, we were doing like this radio bit, and it's like, just, how would you describe me in one word? And my ex-husband's word for me was intense. I'm like, that's fair. What? That's fair. And so, cause I'm just really intense, but it's like, I got, like, now if I get an email from work on the weekend, that's not an emergency, how much work it is for me to be like, you don't have to answer that now. Yes. You can answer that on Monday. You're not a bad person. You're not a bad worker. It doesn't all have to happen immediately. It doesn't have to have this fever pitch, but it's hard. Like, it made me like, it would have alleviated the pain just to answer the damn email. But instead, I sat through an entire weekend of like walking myself through this process, because I'm like, this has to be done, because once I answer that email immediately, I've set the standard. Yes. And then I'm going to keep doing it. And then 2 years from now, I'm going to be pissed about it, and I'm going to want a different job. And I'm like, and I can't do that. So it's taking the weekends and being like, this is my time to do the stuff I like, because if I just involve myself in work, I'll become bitter. Yep. I'll be jaded. I'll be tired. I'll be angry. And that is not fair. And that's all me doing that to myself. That is not the job's fault. And so in some cases it is, like, but in the case I would be doing that now, I'm like, that would be me. So it is really hard. I feel like I've gotten a lot better at it, and it feels nice. Like sometimes, like where I'm like even like bored on the weekends, I'm like, this is wild. I didn't know what bored felt like. And then it's like, you don't have to fill it with work. If like, just, I'll have to constantly calm myself down. Like, it'll be okay. If I don't have a podcast this week, I'm like, it's fine.
It is.
Fine.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's going to be okay. It'll be like, you're going to be fine. Don't beat yourself up. Don't make yourself nuts. It's a process.
It is such a process. What I think is so powerful about doing that work too, though, is like the example that it sets for other people and the invitation that it offers for other people when they're willing and open to see it. Sometimes it's just kind of like a curiosity, like, well, why isn't she writing emails back? But to me, it's like, we do have to set those boundaries, because if we don't, really, there's no one to blame but ourselves. Also acknowledging how hard boundaries are to set, but why not try? Like, I look at it as, we can always go back to the old way of being. We could always work our asses off, burn ourselves out, answer emails on weekends, but like, why wouldn't we just try to see if there's a different way of being? And I think what you're saying about, I never really thought about it that way, Amanda, of like being proactive to not hate what you do makes a whole lot of sense. And then also, I just want to point out too, that proactivity is coming from caring more about yourself and considering yourself more on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And it's like, not like it's to try to like stomp out the narrative that it like means you're lazy or you don't care, you're not doing enough. Like that is not true. Like, I think that if anybody has ever met me, they know that I am not a lazy or unproductive person or doesn't care or wouldn't help out in any sort of way that you need me to. But I'm like, at the same time, like I have, like, in order to keep being that person, I have to like take care of that person.
Yes.
And I've lived a lifetime of not taking care of myself in the correct way. So it's like really trying to do that is difficult. And again, like choosing your pain like it's more comfortable just to stay in the habits that I've been in before. And I know how to operate in those ways, but like learning how to chill out again, you think that would be like, oh, it's easy. Nice. I'm just learning how to be chill. But it's like, it just makes you feel like there's bees in your brain.
Oh man, it's so hard. Well, I think I feel like I say this on every podcast that we've been on together, but it's like, we are the only ones we spent our whole lives with. So like, why wouldn't we do these things? Because we do, I believe that, you know, we're put on this earth to fulfill like a specific, you know, like a calling or a purpose, or to explore, to play. Like that is our nature. We aren't put on this earth to work ourselves to death and then, you know, die and move on and be sick and sad and all of those things. I mean, those are all part of the human experience, but they're not a place where we have to live our entire life in.
Yeah.
And again, acknowledging super effing hard to make the decision to choose yourself and your well-being and your wholeness over societal narratives, over the fear of being, you know, disassociated with or not liked. I mean, it's
there's a lot of roadblocks. Well,
yes.
Just even like, you know, everybody has different circumstances of what their life is. Everyone has a completely different background and where they're coming from. And some people have more privilege than others.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's a lot to work through, but I think ultimately it's like wherever you are in this moment, like do the best that you can for you with whatever you got to work with.
It's been so interesting too, because there is more research that's coming out that talks about it. This research is specifically around exercise. But I think it's applicable everywhere. You know, self-care and wellness and considering yourself doesn't have to look like this, oh my gosh, I'm going to schedule an hour every day and like this whole like pressure-filled thing. Like literally taking 30 seconds to close your eyes and just take one breath makes a difference. You know, parking further away from, you know, the door, so you have to walk a little bit further, like that makes a difference. It's not about these huge, you know, bursts of like all this activity or all this mindfulness. It's like what feels right for you to do in this moment and feels good and feels doable. And then like, just do that and then celebrate it. And then like do it again.
Yeah.
And like it all works out. You'll get to where you need to go.
It's hard to be patient.
Oh, sweet Lord. I am working on, I have a new project. I haven't told you about this.
Oh.
Should we reveal it here?
Yes.
So I'm working on this magic wand project.
Does it vibrate?
It could.
Oh my.
But like
Give
I'll
me
be
two.
able to like tap people, or you could like buy it for your home, and then like whatever change you want to have happen just happens instantaneously without any bad repercussions.
Oh.
I'm trying to source the magic. I've heard the magic in like Mars is the best. So I'm like working with Elon Musk on this project,
my
and
goodness.
it's going to be great. So stay tuned for the magic wand that will get you everything that you want in a life of alignment in 5 seconds, coming in 2025.
Oh, there's just so many
Would you like
jokes
a
in that one
pre-order?
sentence that
I
you
know.
gave me there. Oh my God, you just loaded it. My magic wand.
I
Maybe
know,
it takes like 2 minutes.
I know. So there has been a theme in some of these questions. And I'm actually thinking, Amanda, if you are feeling good about this, I think that we should do another episode like this, because there's also a grouping of questions that kind of speak to like very specific health topics. But I want to kind of keep this a bigger thing, because there were like 6 different questions that spoke to motivation.
Okay.
So let me share kind of some of the topics of these motivation things, but they're all kind of in the same line. So, one talks about, I think the overarching one of like, how do you find motivation for everything? How do you keep yourself going every day?
I think for me, it just comes back to, again, like I'm here, I'm alive, I'm awake. How am I doing it? Like, how am I utilizing my time? And I feel like that's the motivator of like, it's the way that I personally want to live my life. So not that anybody has to do what I do or live the way that I live. That's the way that makes me feel alive, ways that makes me feel like I'm living, and leaving my imprint on the world or the people around me. So I feel like that's the motivation of, I'm here today, so what am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
And I feel like, but that also, on the flip side, also makes me feel paralyzed a lot.
Oh, say more.
So it's like, yeah, I have this day, but like I'm not maximizing it. It's just an ordinary day, and I'm trying to see the beauty in the ordinary day, which I do. But it's also like, oh, but if I'm really like grasping life, like these are all of these awesome things I want to do with my life, and I can't do them. And like, it feels like almost frustrating sometimes that I feel like I just want to live so much that it feels like I'm limited to what I can do. So, I mean, I'd say overall it's the motivator, but also at the same time, it can make me feel, I guess, overwhelmed that there's so much I want to do and I don't know where to start. So sometimes I'll do nothing.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to sink into the nothing and just kind of let that be? Or does it feel like tumultuous, like a pull of like, oh, I should be doing something? Or like, are you able to just marinate?
I'd say it definitely feels a little bit more turbulent. I feel like I've been able to comment a little bit more, but rather than being like, oh, you're doing nothing, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, or like, ugh, lazy, like get up and do something. Like, you know what I mean? So I used to be that way more than I am now. But it also feels like, oh, if it's a really nice day outside, I won't allow myself to just like lay in bed when I'm like,
right.
But I kind of want to lay in bed. But I'm like, but it's so nice outside and it could be crappy tomorrow and you'll be mad that you didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So I'd say that it's like a mix of both.
Mm-hmm. Related to this, so some of the other motivation questions kind of came from, how do you find motivation to work out in like a non-fun gym type situation? Or how do you find motivation to keep weight loss and a healthy lifestyle going? How do you find the motivation to make a big lifestyle change in a sustainable way? And kind of the vibe that I'm getting from some of these is like, what advice would you give for someone who is struggling finding motivation or staying motivated in, any part of their life?
I think that it kind of boils down to finding the stuff that you like. And then even the stuff that you like, you're still not going to want to do every day. But then it just becomes a question to yourself. So like a good example is like, I love walking outside. Obviously, we've discussed that a lot already. Like, that's my thing. I really like that. But there's some days where I'm like, well, I just don't feel like walking outside today, which is good, again, like for my mental and physical health to go for a walk. And I'm like, I just don't feel like it. And then I'll be like, okay. And then I'll have this is where I'll quote unquote find the motivation. I'll have the conversation with myself of like, how will I feel mentally and physically after each decision?
Ooh, that's a great one.
So if I just sit on the couch, how will I feel mentally and physically with that decision? If I go for a walk, how will I feel after that? And like, really depending on where I'm at, then I'll just go with the decision that's correct. And like, that's not, if I don't go for a walk, it's not saying I'm not motivated. Like, I actually kind of walk down the path of figuring out what was best. But I will say more times than not, when I think about that, I'm like, I know that every time I go for a walk, even if it's for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, I never regret it. And it's like a lot easier to go for a walk than it is to like change your clothes and drive to the gym and go to the gym and leave the gym. Not like knocking the gym at all. Like, I love going to the gym too. But it's also like, what are those things that you like? If you find a way of like fitness or eating or whatever you're doing that brings you joy and happiness and you would genuinely enjoy doing on a regular basis, then do that more. And then on the days that you don't, have that conversation with yourself and it'll lead you in the right decision. Because again, if you love it and you know you'll feel good after doing it, you're more likely to just go ahead and do it. And so that's my advice on that one.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think the curiosity, I really thinking about, how will I feel like at the end of this is such a great question to ask, and can be such a great motivator. And something else that I'm hearing too is, again, it's just like that invitation to meet yourself where you're at. Like there is no perfection. There is no need to constantly go. There is no standard. Like literally the only person that we're really holding standards to are the ones that we create. So if you're not meeting them, it's just like, figure out what you do like. Do a little bit of it. It's
well,
awesome.
And just like a good example is last week specifically, I didn't go to Trilogy, which is where I go work out at all week. Woo-hoo. One, because my schedule is a little funkier, and because I'm like in the middle of doing this Whole30 and I felt like just kind of funky and kind of off. So like I really had to sit down with myself and be like, because I gave myself, I have a little checkboard in my kitchen, a little chalkboard of like how many times I want to go to Trilogy this month. So that's also another motivator for me, is like, I like checking my little boxes and giving myself a goal for the month. So my goal is I want to go to Trilogy 10 times this month. So I had to sit with myself and be like, I don't like that I won't get my boxes checked. That sucks. That feels yuck. I don't like that. And I'm like, but also I will survive if I don't. And I'm like, and how useful will the gym be to me if I'm shoehorning it in ways that just stresses me out? So it's not that I wasn't motivated. I sat down and had a conversation with myself. I'm like, does it feel better, again, mentally and physically, if I just don't try to cram in funky like ways of try to fit the gym in this week? I just take the week off and get back on it next week because I enjoy it and I want to go back. It's not, I know I'm not going to fall off the wagon. I like going there. And like, I hate that when I lose consistency, because that's when you get on and off the wagon or whatever. But again, because I like it, I know I'm going to go back. Like, it's not that I hated it and I was avoiding it. So I took a week off. There was things about it I didn't feel good about, but the things that I did feel good about it outweighed that. Then I'm like, maybe it's better to take a little bit of a rest week. I'm going through this like detox through this diet. I don't want to stress myself out over scheduling. It's just better this way. And it was. And then I went to Trilogy twice already this week. And I'm like, and I feel great. And it was like, that was fine. Like, you know what I mean? So it's not like I lost motivation. It was just, I think, again, like having the conversations and knowing that you're doing something that you want to go back to, and being gentle with yourself and being like, it's okay if you have a break. Yeah. You can come back. It's going to be waiting for you.
Absolutely. And I have been thinking about that a lot. I actually had a similar experience last week with Trilogy. That's almost the exact same thing.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes. I had messaged them. It's an amazing gym, y'all. It's like very cool. Really chill people, like just a great, it's amazing. Highly recommend. Anyways, this is not an ad, but I had texted them because I was like, I think like I am trying to go to the gym once a week. If I go more, cool. But like my base is like, I just want to go once a week. And I thought I had some time in the afternoon. So I texted them and was like, do you have any openings for 3? They did. Great. 2:00 rolls around and I'm like, okay, I got to leave in like a half hour. And then I just got caught up doing something, and like 2:30 rolls around and I'm like feeling that like panic of like, but I need to finish this thing that I'm working on. And I really did legitimately want to finish it. It was a reel for our Taylor Swift day and I was very proud of it. It took me a very long time and it's beautiful. But anyways, but I sat for a second, because what's not feeling good to me is that shoehorning in things. Yeah. It's like, and I took a moment and I was like, okay, what feels right? And I actually got in my car to leave. And as I went to reverse. I had my car in reverse. I was like, this isn't feeling right. Because what's going to happen is that I'm going to haul ass to Trilogy. I'll work out. I'll be as present as I possibly can be. But in the back of my mind, I'll be like, oh, I just need to finish this. I just need to finish this. And like after Trilogy, I was going to get my girls. And then the night was like, off to the races or whatever.
Yeah.
So I took a moment. I messaged them and I was like, this is not working out the way that I thought. Totally cool. And then I just went the next day. Because I think understanding when we're pushing in a way that actually is not a good source of motivation is really important to slow down and like notice that, it's like, because everything will be there when we pick it up. But I think there's this like narrative that we've developed of like, if I miss one day, everything goes to shit. And it's just like it's not the case.
Well, and sometimes it does. And I've been in that life before too. And I think that if you do notice that pattern about yourself is if you do miss a day or miss a week and everything goes to shit, then that's what you need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, why is that happening? Like,
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily mean it's just like you and a personality trait. Like, this is where this work sucks, is like diving deep into those things of like, why do I do this?
Yeah.
Like, why do I feel this way? And like, I used to go to the gym 6 days a week nonstop. And if I missed a day, I felt insane. And that's like, that's not healthy either. Like, right. So that's like me thinking if I'm not going to go, I'm going to like lose all my progress. I'm going to lose all my motivation. I'm like, that's not true. Why was my brain spinning on fire like that?
Yeah.
It's like, this is doing me more harm than good. And my knees can tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, burn all my cartilage out.
Well, I think it's also, examining, like part of staying motivated is also examining where your motivation is coming from.
Yeah.
Like what is the purpose? Like where is that coming from? Because if it is in a place of like, oh my gosh, I want like quick results and you set yourself up, you want to get into a gym routine. You're like, I'm going to go 6 days a week for 2 hours. Like that's just it's not realistic. So it's like, but understanding why do you want to do that? And then kind of sitting with that can be very powerful too.
Yeah. I'd say my motivator at that time was just definitely like weight loss.
Yeah.
Aesthetics. And even though I knew I care about health and fitness, and I did, and that's always kind of been like my mission and narrative too. That was definitely more driven by that. And I can tell that it's less driven by that now because I'll go to the gym 2-3 days a week. I'll lift really heavy. I walk all the time and I'm like, and it's fine. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like this, like you have to go because you need, the scale needs to move and you need to like do your body fat and all this other stuff. It's just kind of like, no, I'm doing stuff that I like and it feels good. And the end.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's just the drivers too. Not that having weight loss is a bad driver to have, but it also can, sometimes your drivers can like lead you into a bad place.
Absolutely. And I really feel that when we can, like, to get back to what you were saying too, of like finding stuff that you like, if you find yourself not engaging with something that you feel like you want to do, if you're consistently not engaging or it consistently feels like a huge pain in the ass to like get up and do it or change or whatever, it might just not be the right thing.
Yeah. Or just not right now.
Yeah. Or not right now, or like not the right, like fun size habit type stuff, right?
Yeah.
Of like, you don't have to go balls to the wall 6 days a week. Like start off with what feels doable, which is why I choose to just do like, my goal is 1 day a week. That feels super doable to me. And what's awesome is that the weeks that I go more, that feels great. But because I never like change that expectation, I never lose my motivation because I always know I could go at least once a week.
Yeah.
And then if I don't go, it's fine too.
Well, same thing too. I think the same motivator for eating healthy food too is realizing what you feel like when you don't eat that way. Yeah. And the motivator is to not feel like a trash bag full of nacho cheese. Yeah. So like, I feel like that, I mean, that I think we all kind of go in our ebbs and flows with all of that. I know I certainly do. So, but I think, again, like reminding yourself, like the motivation is like, how am I going to feel mentally and physically on the other side of this decision? If I eat this entire cheesecake, how am I going to feel about it? Am I going to feel awesome? Am I going to feel like a rock star? or am I going to feel terrible and beat myself up? Then what's the right decision to make? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, you literally have the choice. Like, you can do whatever you want. so it's like the motivator is like, I know if I eat this whole thing, I am going to physically feel like garbage. I am mentally going to terrorize myself. Then the motivator should be is like, why do I want those two things for myself? So I can feel good for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're going to feel good for 20 minutes so you can feel shame and awful about yourself and physically feel terrible if that's what it does to you. For how long? You know what I mean? So those are all choices. And it's different for everybody. And every moment changes, because there's times where I'm like, I absolutely would not eat an entire birthday cake by myself. And there's other moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm getting after this whole thing and I'm not going to feel bad on the other side of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like making those empowered decisions. It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Amanda, I feel like I want to tie a bow on this one because there's been a theme, and I was thinking that maybe I could do like a little recap of some themes that came up that I think were really powerful. And then I would love to I'm just inviting myself to do another one of these so we could talk about like another group of questions that kind of hit on a similar topic.
What's the other topic that came up that you want?
Dude, y'all have asked such incredible questions. So the other topics that came up very consistently. So there are like general life ones, like kind of like fun ones about like, how are the animals doing? And like things like that. So like just kind of like a fun one. And then the other one, the other topic that comes up is talking about like whole body, whole health stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Around like mental health. Also, a really interesting question about like food standards and your beliefs and what you think why the food standards are the way they are in our country. There's some questions involving hormones, sleep. So I kind of see that in like because you're also a coach and everything and have certifications and all of these things. I thought it could be really interesting to kind of dig into like your opinions of like whole body health stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, there's some really good ones. Maybe we could do like another round of AMA too, because I love this.
Yeah.
But something that I love to do is just kind of like pick out different themes. So like the nuggets that I have found powerful, and I would be curious, if anyone wants to share what they felt that really resonated with them, but it really comes down to slowing down, finding stuff that you like, and like the number one thing to just come back to. And I think everything that you talked about comes right back to this, and it's the trust yourself.
Yeah.
It's like talking about the motivation and stuff. It's like slowing down, listening, like trust yourself that you're going to get back to that thing that you're not able to do today, and making the big life decisions. Scary AF, but like trust yourself that you can get to where you want to go when you start listening to yourself more and considering yourself more. And as I think more about like this kind of theme of trusting yourself, was there one event that inspired you to immediately start trusting yourself? Or do you feel like it is something that there was a series of events throughout your entire life where you just learned like, okay, yeah, I can trust myself. Let me do this again. Oh yeah, I can trust myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd say definitely a series of events. And
are there any that like really come to mind for you that you were like, oh, here's a time that I trusted myself, it worked out?
No, I can't think of anything specifically. I know that I've got I think it's definitely gone into like more of a warp speed in the past several years.
Yes.
For me. I think that's a problem that I had before is like not listening to intuition at all or blowing past it or be like, oh, that's nuts and trying to out logic everything. So I've done that a ton. So, but I would say that like you would if you looked at my life, there's a lot of times where you think I did trust myself in some ways. I really trusted like my talent and my abilities to be like, you know what, I'm going to move across the country and go from radio job to radio job. Like I trust that I can pick up and move to a new place and start over again. And that I know that I'm talented enough to walk in the doors and come in here and crush it. So I feel like there's been levels of being able to trust myself in those sorts of ways. But I'd say definitely, I think I didn't really start. I can tell you one instance that I know really sparked a really big change in me that really got me like looking at myself deeper. And I think that's what started kind of all of this more so was that really was like, I don't view myself that way, but I don't want to be, okay, well, here's just a story. So this was a few years ago. This was 2018. And somebody who I was close with, we were we were just arguing with each other. And we needed a mediator for our argument. And we're kind of like going back and forth of like, well, this is like this, and will you do this, and that sort of thing. And he said to me, he's like, you are so negative. You're like the most negative person I've ever met. I can't stand to be around you. And I'm like, then why do you hang out with me all the time? And he's like, I feel like I have to. And I'm like, that to me was such a knife right in my heart that I'm like, that feels awful. Part of me feels like that was something that was said in just like, I'm feeling backed into a corner.
Yes.
I'm going to cut you. So part of it that was that, but I'm like, I don't want to write it off as just that. Like there's truth in what he's saying. That's how he feels, whether it's he's saying that to just smack me in a fight or not. So I'm like, I don't perceive myself as a super negative person, but I'm like, but maybe I am. Like, am I a negative person? And I really started kind of sitting with that and kind of viewing my actions, and like that got me like reading more self-help books and getting me more like in tune to who I was. And it was just like, I'd say that comment specifically really was a moment for me to like wake up and be like, I don't ever want to think of myself that way. I don't want anybody else to think of me that way. And if I am that way, how do I change that? Because I don't want to be a negative person.
Right.
And so doing all of that stuff and really kind of like picking apart like, okay, well, I just did this or I said this. And I'm like, ooh, that is real negative. I can see where that'd be perceived, where I'm like, I don't see this as, my perception is I'm trying to be helpful.
Right.
But I can see where this can be perceived as negative. Where is this coming from? And how can I change the language that I use in these conversations?
Yeah.
So, and then it just goes into like trusting myself that I was on the right path and like, I guess really truly learning myself. So I think it started with learning myself more, and then like understanding me more helped me trust me because I finally like knew who I was.
What? I flipping love that. Like, how did that feel to make that jump from kind of logic trust? You know, like, you know that you would crush any radio job, right? So like, kind of like, I don't know, like surface, like, oh yeah, like, of course I got this. How did that transition feel to go from like logic-based trust to more of like intuitive-based trust?
It's hard when you're not used to operating that way. And I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's hard because it's not how I'm used to living. So again, like when you're changing your comfort zone and you're changing things, it's slow. It's a grind. You like feel the pressure up against yourself, like that it sucks to sit there and constantly question yourself. So, I mean, it feels like I've gotten a lot better with it. And then I've realized when I do go in those more intuitive, trusting sort of thing, everything flows so much easier. Like there isn't resistance. It's not like you're trying to force something to happen. Things just like flow and happen so easily. So it's like, okay, well, I see this now. Logically, I see how this works. So then in these moments, do I try to like go into my body and intuition and trust myself more, because logically I know that when I do, it'll work out better. And I'm trying to make things less complicated. And like we all want to make things easier on ourselves. Like I don't want my life to be hard.
Absolutely.
So I think that it's all of that and like all of its work. So it's like, that's the work that other than, you know, eating chicken, rice and broccoli and, you know, doing, you know, dumbbell curls or whatever, like you can do all these other things, but it's like, this is like the work that like goes in and changes the game. And it's so much harder than going running laps and making meal prep.
Agreed 100% on that. If someone's listening and they're kind of feeling sparked by or noticing that they want to get more in touch with their intuitive side, you can only share one thing to start off with. Like, what do you think is a great first step for someone who wants to get to know themselves and trust themselves more on an intuitive level?
That's such a good question.
I know. That's why I asked it.
I don't know, like the first thing that pops in my head, so I'm just going to go with it, is I'm just going to say like, you just have to quiet down. I think you just have to like, as you know, as like woo-woo-y as that sounds, it's like you have to like sit with yourself. Like that's where it starts. Like you're going to like really look at in a mirror in a real way. Got to quietly sit with yourself and know yourself. And for me anyway, like a lot of parts of that feel real awful.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's definitely eased up a lot now, but like no one wants to just like look at the awful parts of themselves. And you know what, like there's so many life metaphors in The Never Ending Story, but do you remember that movie? The Never Ending Story. But like when he goes to the Oracle where everybody dies, because they said that they look into a mirror and they see themselves, and that's when they get crushed and they die. And they're like, you should rewatch that movie as an adult.
Watch this as an adult.
Watch as an adult. Like there's so many life themes in that movie. But like that's where they're like, when they really reflect and they get to see who they truly are, they run away screaming. And they're like, only the true warrior can like look at himself and move forward without being crushed. Like, so it reminds me of that, but also that movie's awesome.
Homie, I think you just mic dropped it there. With the Never Ending Story reference. So good. But oh my gosh, like just quieting down. I'm thinking about what we were talking about too, and how adverse I'm feeling, like how I keep on avoiding that, even though I know like I need it. Like my entire being is like, just sit down and be quiet with yourself. Don't do anything. Just be by yourself, and how challenging that can be. Yeah. Because you just want to scroll or you want to do something. So much easier. Yeah. It sounds like it should be easy to just quietly sit with yourself, and it's not. It sucks ass. Yeah. But it's a great first step. So on that note, friends. So, I think we leave it there. All right. Well, thank you for interviewing me. Oh my gosh. I look forward to doing this again, and just all of the knowledge and wisdom. It's so amazing. So thank you for sharing everything, and also being vulnerable with what you're sharing. And thank you everyone too for listening into this. Stay tuned for part 2. Well, do you want to like give me, like, we have to end the interview with your spiel with everything you got going on, talking about B and everything else? Oh yeah. So currently, I would introduce myself as an optimist, encourager, a social entrepreneur, a lover of life and all living things. I don't know. I'm just trying my best to figure it out. I recently opened a brick and mortar space that is designed to help make taking care of yourself easier and really take the second guessing out of self-care. So the first floor of the building is the Market at B, where we have so many amazing, nutrient-dense, healthy foods that actually taste good. So we make a lot of grab-and-go foods, or you can grab and stay as well. So like salads and bento boxes and dips and dressings and things. And then we have a very curated market selection of as locally sourced as possible pantry staples and snacks, because very much as to what we were all talking about is, I believe that our health and our wellness changes like one little thing at a time. So the idea is that someone could walk into the market, and we also have smoothies, smoothie bowls, really yummy egg bites, house-made tomato jam, an incredible vibe. Like everyone that walks in just keeps on giving us the feedback of like, I just feel like I just like relax the instant I walk in.
That's awesome.
It's so cool to see that like people are feeling like what I was hoping that they would feel walking in. But just making those one little change at a time. And my thought was that if we do all the work and I can say like, yes, you can come in, grab anything. We make it super easy for people that they'll feel inspired to maybe grab some food, to slow down, like just what we were talking, to unplug a little bit and to start to notice what foods make their bodies feel really great and which ones make them feel less great. Because really, generally speaking, if we just aim to eat more whole foods, less processed foods, drink some water, wander around a little bit, like we'll get to where we need to go. The second floor houses a collective of healers and helpers. We have Kindred Flow Yoga Studio up there. We also have Michelle Luck, who does Reiki and tarot and crystal bowls. Hannah Chapman, who's a heart-centered money coach and financial planner. We also have Lauren Albarella, who's a yoga therapist, and most recent addition is Autumn McKinley, who owns All Cherie's Intriguing Crystals, and she makes the most beautiful jewelry with purpose and intention, and also does all kinds of really neat crystal work as well. Eventually the third floor will be a retreat space, but that's like 3 to 5 year plan. But cool. Yeah, it's just, I think something that I feel most proud about is, as much as it's about like the tactical things, right? Like everybody needs to eat. So here is some really healthy food that tastes great, and everything's gluten, dairy, and peanut-free friendly, just because those tend to be so inflammatory in our country with how much we process them. There's nothing wrong with them inherently, but we just take it a little bit too far here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. But I totally lost my train of thought here. That's absolutely amazing, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. There's so much to say. What do I want to say? But what my thought is like, as much as it's about like the healthy foods that taste good and the smoothies and the smoothie bowls and like the yoga and things like that, what I really aspire for in this space is that, the name of the building is B, and it's on a very busy corner in Wyoming, Ohio. And my hope is that when people stop at those stoplights, that they see that sign B and they just are reminded to like, just take a breath and just be for a moment.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what I'm hoping is that it's been my experience as a health coach that when people start nourishing their body with the foods that work best for them, which is different for everyone, but once they start identifying those and they eat them more, they start to have more energy, more capacity, start to look at their life a little bit differently, start to make some choices of like crowding out the things that are not serving them or the people or the careers, and start to like bring in the things that do serve them, the things that they do like. They start to consider themselves more. And, through that, my hope is that people will feel inspired to create their own unique ripple in the world and kind of unburden themselves from the busyness. The way that we get them in the building is smoothies and food, but really ultimately it's about encouraging people to go out, care for themselves, consider themselves, put themselves first, and, through that, be able to live the life that they feel called to live.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, man. Cool. And then try to figure out, like in the midst of all of that is the most challenging part is really the mental part of it for me. I know that I have all the certifications. I do it for a living. I know all these things to do, like what you were talking about, right? But it's like actually doing them consistently and putting them into play and not deprioritizing them is probably the number one thing that I'm working on right now is like, okay, go take 5 minutes and just sit by yourself. It's okay to do that.
Well, I think it's an important note that you bring that up, and then I brought that up for everyone listening who is asking about motivation and stuff, of like even people that have all the tools still don't do it all the time. Correct. So don't beat yourself up because it's just human nature.
It is, yeah.
So like everybody, whether they're portraying that or not, is living to that to some degree.
Yes.
No one is perfect, and being perfect would suck anyway.
Absolutely. Like it's, I mean, it would not be awesome. Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this amazing gift of being able to have such a large variety of emotions and experiences, and they're not all awesome. But I mean, the fact that that's part of what makes us as humans human, you know, why wouldn't we want to consider those things, you know? And for me, getting curious, and I just realized this today of like, I'm starting to get curious of like, well, what am I avoiding? Because I know I need to sit by myself. I know I need to have these moments by myself. Why am I not taking them? So that's kind of where I'm sitting at this current moment of like, what is going to come up for me? What am I nervous is going to come up, you know, on a subconscious level if I just sit by myself? And I think a lot of it has to do with like my nervous system has been revved up.
Yeah.
As well as I, you know, brought B to life and everything. I'm also realizing that at 42, I don't think I've ever really been still.
Yeah.
I know like you and I have talked about that a lot. So
Yeah.
I don't know, friends, we'll see what pops up here.
Well, I'm excited because I know whenever you figure it out, you'll leave me a voice message
Yes.
telling me exactly what you learned.
Yes. Yes. Probably involves some tears, some laughter, a nice long hi, homie. Amanda and I have been on a kick of figuring out the most creative ways to say homie in all of our messages. And we're getting like, I think we could just like do like a whole like, you know, podcast of like.
I was really hyped. I think mine this morning was like, hey ho, me.
Yeah, I know. I like to see how long I could hold my. But no, but seriously, friends, like out of all of this, I hope, you know, what you get is exactly what Amanda was saying, is that, you know, we have the tools and we have the certifications and, you know, we do this kind of stuff for a living, but it's like, we're still figuring out and we'll never have it all figured out. I don't think anybody ever does. So let that be freeing for you. Nobody knows what the F is going on. We're just doing our best.
A really great Kurt Vonnegut quote that I like is, I just got here myself.
Oh,
Like, we all just got here. We all have never been in this day before. None of us have it figured out. We all just got here.
That's badass.
Yeah. So that just makes you feel better. Again, like zoom out. No one else has lived this day on this planet before that we're aware of. I don't know. There's aliens. So
This is kind of blowing my mind.
Oh man, we're not even tripping.
I know. That's what I love. I'm just like, it's like these like esoteric, like deep thoughts of like, no shit, nobody has experienced this day before.
Yeah. We're all here the first time together. So you can't expect somebody else to know what's up. They don't know.
Yeah.
I just got here too.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. On that note, thank you for interviewing me, homie.
Thank you so much, homie. Bye, everyone.
AmandaValentineBites.com